Well, hello there, how is everyone? I hope you're all well on this fabulous Tuesday. That's it, Tuesday. We got through Monday, and what a day. What a day. We saw Drip Drop release a video yesterday, and I saw the title, and I thought immediately, this video is going to split the room. It's going to upset a few people. I'd already released the video yesterday referencing my thoughts around Stacey Chapin attending CrimeCon, and I knew that that would meet mixed responses. And look, it wasn't to attack Stacey Chapin whatsoever. It was to try to, I'll tell you what I've realised is it's very easy for people to use the word target. You're targeting this person, you're targeting that person. And it isn't about targeting whatsoever. It's about trying to understand the entire Idaho 4 case. It's not about targeting anyone. It's about trying to understand everything that is put before us. And there are so many things that take a lot of understanding because, you know, with respect of the Stacey Chapin situation, I think to myself, how would I react and respond to my child being killed in this manner just a few months down the line, still with a trial pending? You don't know whether this person who they've got is indeed the person who did it. Not even Steve Gonsalves is 100% convinced that the person that is in the dock is the guy. You know, arguably, on one hand, he'll say one thing that means or seems to mean that he does believe it's him. Then he'll say something completely the opposite that makes it seem that he doesn't think it's him, and it could be, and he's open to, you know, the fact that it could be someone else anyway. Point being, there is still a trial, and my issues with this was that I felt that Stacey Chapin's mannerisms surrounding the way she's acting and behaving was feeling like she could have been doing it to appease the Greek system, because that's how they're acting. They want to move on, move forward, sweep everything aside. You know, there's nothing we can do now. We just need to move forward, business as usual. We'll get this Phoenix University deal done, get that all settled, you know, and knock the house down, get rid of that so no one can see it, nothing to see here, and you know, that's just how it felt to me. It just felt very, you know, is this what we're seeing? True, genuine feelings of a grieving mum, or is it someone whose feelings are being buried and acting and reacting in certain ways to appease a system with which they seem to be heavily connected with? That's it. And trying to understand that, and the realisation that there could be later on down the line, there could be effects from that. I digress. But anyway, you know, so what with yesterday, you know, you sometimes have to sort of consider the question, and that is that when we as social media content creators, does there become a point where we overstep the mark? Do we cross a line? And the reality is that in a way, we do sometimes cross the line. We do talk about things that we know are going to split the room, they're going to upset people. But the flip side of that coin is it's not that we are wrong because it's wrong. I think it can sometimes be argued that we're wrong because some people are just not ready to understand that the things that are spoken about exist. And what do I mean by that? I mean Drip Drop. You know, Drip Drop's video is finding a connection between, you've got Steve Gonsalves and Steve Gonsalves' brother, who was incarcerated for unaliving somebody. And then you've got people who these people were mixed up with, the one who was unalived, and it goes back again to this potential Odinism cult and Coeur d'Alene. And, you know, it's hard because you find yourself thinking, you know, now what we're talking about is we're saying that there's a potential connection in the Idaho 4 case for this to be a similar situation than what we're seeing unfold in the Abby and Libby case, you know, the Delphi case, what with Richard Allen and, you know, his defense teams information that they've brought forward about, again, this Odinism cult and what they are trying to push forward as what happened to Abby and Libby. And it almost feels that you knew that eventually this was going to be touched upon. But and that's I think that's the problem that people have. It's they almost expect it. People who are against, people who are willing to really deep dive into things and cover absolutely everything, they know that this is already going to happen. And the downside is when there is a link found, there is a connection found, there is this feeling of, oh, here we go. The tinfoil hat creators have found a link, and we knew that when Delphi came up with all this cult, they were going to say that there was a potential for this to be a ritualistic killing in Idaho 4 as well, and the numerology things and so on and so forth. But I think it's really important that people take a step back and understand that as sensationalized as some of this feels and how radical and ridiculous some of these situations feel, they exist. They do absolutely exist. I was lucky enough to be in Drip Drop's live chat yesterday, and there's mixed emotions around this case, the Idaho 4 case especially, because you're getting creators who are touching on things that bring the way in which this case is going in a different direction. I think there is sanctuary in people's hearts and in their minds when they feel that Brian Kohberger is a person who did this and he is safely locked up pending trial, and eventually this is going to go a certain way and they're going to get an outcome, and Brian Kohberger is going to be punished for the crime with which he committed, and that's sanctuary to them. That's their safe space. But it isn't always like that. It isn't always as simple as that. What is presented to you sometimes comes with questions. And sometimes those questions, you have to make a conscious decision on whether you're willing to ignore them and just accept what is being presented to you, or whether you are going to look into these things that have questions and you're going to first explore these other things. So in your mind, you are sure that what is being presented to you is correct. And I think that there's so many people who don't do that. They just accept what is being presented to them. But there is a conscious effort in media at times to concrete, solidify that main story. Like with Brian Kohberger being guilty, the media pushed that. They went in with stories that were not true. They brought and sensationalized stories and twisted them to make them go in a certain direction, and that is how a large proportion of people following this case drew a conclusion that Brian Kohberger was guilty before he'd ever even hit the courtroom. And it's a sad one, because it makes content creators apprehensive as to how far they want to look into things, because they know the backlash that it's going to cause. People start coming saying, we're going to report your channel, we're reporting this, we're reporting that. Reporting for what? That's like saying that you, as an individual watching a channel, will report a channel if that channel says something that you don't agree with. And then we've got situations like in the Delphi case that have been going on for years and years and years. Didn't find anyone. 7 years. And early on we find out that the FBI put that case forward as saying this is a ritualistic killing, more than likely connected to Odinism, and lower level law enforcement poo-poos that idea and says no, it's not. And they go in a different direction with it, and it doesn't get solved until later on when they find this man and he is then incarcerated for it. And then the system beats him down and destroys him to the point where you now don't know whether, if he has indeed confessed, he's confessed to put himself out of the misery. You just don't know. Every person has a breaking point, a place that they will reach, and then they just want it all to end, all to go away. And there is alternatives in that story. We're not saying that the Odinism and the cult and ritualistic thing is a done deal. But there is some compelling evidence to kind of mean that you can't then ignore that. But, like I'm talking about, and like this, about overstepping the mark, crossing the line and saying things that people aren't ready to hear, how many people out there, with regards to the Delphi case, are unwilling to even accept that this Odinism situation is something that could even be possible? Not possible, not in a million years. It's like when Drip Drop got the picture of the red outside Xana's window, and the people were like saying about the snow, and there's snow on there, and this, that, and the other, and then he has to go back and pull up the picture again and say, no, this is the picture, this is where I saw it, you can see it's red, there's no snow, so on and so forth. And you've got to battle this mentality all the time. You've got to prove and prove and prove. But even when you've proved beyond a reasonable doubt that this picture shows this specific thing, still isn't enough. Still isn't enough. Like, we can say that around this Idaho 4 case, there is narcotics. There's 3 out of the 4 parents that are involved in not only not doing narcotics, but distribution and mid-level distribution of narcotics. And that still isn't enough for people to understand that there are narcotics in this situation. On the peripheral of it, there is narcotics, and people still won't hear it. Steve Gonsalves has a brother who has killed someone, and that isn't enough to understand that there is a potential for retribution of some description in the background here. And we have to just accept that Bryan Kohberger did it, he did it, no one else did it, nothing else is worth even looking into, listening to. You're all tinfoil hats if you believe anything other than Bryan Kohberger just managed to one night get up, decide to go from Washington to Moscow in his car and do this crime and then drive home. What do you believe? And what do people want people to do? Just accept what they're told at first, because if that's the case, then why bother having trials? Why bother spending all that money in the courtroom? Why? Let's just let law enforcement tell us who it is and deal with it. I'll catch you all in the next one.